everybody. My name is Elijah Selby, and you're listening to the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast. I am joined, as always, by co-host JP Bennett. JP, how you doing today?
I am doing great. I wanted to bring up something. So when I was doing research on some of these players we were doing, I looked back to 2012 and the fantasy finishes for receivers there. And it brings me so much just great memories from those days with Calvin Johnson. So these are the top 10 receivers in 2012.
Megatron.
Yes, you got Calvin Johnson, Brennan Marshall, A.J. Green, Des Bryant, Andre Johnson. Like, oh my gosh. When I saw this, I was like, wow. I remember watching these guys when I first started watching football. And, yeah, it just gave me such great memories. And this is when Julio Jones was really young, too. And him and Roddy White both finished top 12 that year. And as a Falcons fan, I'm like, man, those are some good days.
Yeah. That's probably around Julian Edelman came in 2011. He got Gronk in his, you could say his prime. You have Wes Welker had left, or no. He's either last year or he went to the Broncos by
Yeah,
then.
this was Wes Welker. He finished 7th overall in points that year.
Yeah. It was good times, yeah.
Right, man. It's always great to see these players' names and the nostalgia that fills me and the great memories. It's really cool. That's why I love football.
Yeah. All right.
All right, guys. So the details of what we are going to be doing here is we're going to be looking at the average draft position of 8 players that we've chosen on different teams, and we're going to look at where they're going, how much they cost, and whether or not we're going to be buying or selling, where they're currently going at their price.
And before that, we want to get into some football news, some things that have been happening lately. And one thing I want to say even before that is I'm glad to see that some training camps have started and some more secure type training has been happening. And it looks like we're getting into a good direction of getting the season rolling.
Yeah, I definitely hope we can start on time. I mean, OTAs and minicamp, they've been canceled, but yeah, players have still been training, especially wide receivers and quarterbacks, getting that connection down with the chemistry and routes and whatnot.
Yeah. All right, so with our news first, I'm going to start with Deebo Samuel, which I'm sure most people have heard of by now. So he suffered a broken foot, and that usually means 3 to 4 months, 4 months out. And, that won't be the whole season. I see the 49ers going deep, but I think that means some positive things for Ayuk and Kittle as well. So just a sad thing, and I think, of course, that drops him a little bit, but he's definitely someone to have towards the end of the season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could be back by around week 5. I think he'd miss maybe the first quarter of the season. But the thing that stinks is when you have a foot injury, returning back from it, especially a broken foot, he's not going to be 100% when he first comes back. But so, yeah, that means Ayuk and George Kittle are going to get more targets in the passing game. I mean, especially for Ayuk, that's fantastic for him. He's going to get reps potentially as the number 1 wide receiver there to start his career. So, yeah, that's definitely going to help him. I mean, especially in dynasty formats if you have him. Redraft, I mean, he still could have value there, but I definitely like him in dynasty.
Yeah, and I just got to go through these pretty fast. Our next one, we got Brandon Brooks, who's got a torn Achilles.
Wow.
Unfortunately, that means he's pretty much out for the season. One thing I want to, my internet connection's a little unstable right now. You froze for a second, but he's one of the key people for the Eagles' defense, and I can't really think
Their
of.
offense.
Do you say defense? Oh, I'm sorry. But he's one of the key people for that offensive line, and they've never been terrible, but I think with wanting to protect Carson Wentz as much as you possibly can, I don't think they can afford to take too many hits there.
Yeah, I mean, it affects Miles Sanders too because, I mean, he was the number 1 graded guard in the whole league last year. He was fantastic. So, yeah, that definitely hurts the passing game and the running game a little bit. Not that it's going to, be abysmal to the offense.
Yeah. Hopefully, I hope they figure something out because I love Carson Wentz and I want him to do well, not be injured. And when he's on the field, he's got that watchability, that magic that you see. That he does all those throws, those clutch throws, outside throws, corner of the end zone type stuff. But yeah, moving on to another member of the Eagles for a possibility at least. Yeah, Alshon Jeffrey with the pup list PUP. Uh, it's just a potential that he may be happening. That may be happening. He has Liz Frank surgery, which means that's an injury to the middle foot that they're trying to fix. Not a broken foot, but still on the foot at least. And I mean, I think that's more recovery time potential as well as the multiple injuries he's already had.
Yeah, and the thing is, the report is that he's expected to be back in time, but I usually don't always see that as positive. It's like, well, he's not ready, and we heard AJ Groom's expected to start the season last year. I mean, that was the expectation. I mean, it's kind of not super positive with the expectation, and with the timetable for the surgery. I mean, he might not be back till September, October, and we've seen him struggle with injuries in the past. So there's a chance he's going to miss the beginning of the season, but I guess we will never know till we get there.
Yeah, and I think that we talked about Jalen Reagor definitely gets a boost up a little bit
Oh yeah,
for dynasty beginnings and uh, just that offense as a whole.
yeah, he could be that number one receiver for Wentz at the beginning of the year, and I'd rather have the number one receiver for Wentz than Garoppolo based on how they run their offenses. So
Yeah,
that he could be exciting flex potential option in the beginning of the season
yeah. All
if
right.
if Alshon were to miss.
Yeah, I mean, you got Deshaun Jackson, maybe there, if he doesn't get injured too. Anyways, enough with the sad news, potentially, because we might be selling some people. But anyways, into the buys and sells of this season with 8 of the players we've chosen. We got 1 QB, we got 2 tight ends, we got 2 wide receivers, and we got 3 running backs. So we're ready to get into it. All right, so we're going to go in order of the earliest round to late rounds, maybe a little bit at the end, maybe mixing it up a little bit. But starting off, Todd Gurley of the Atlanta Falcons team. So he's going averagely around, is that a word? Averagely. It doesn't sound right. Around the second round, number 12th there. Um, I He's running back 15, which is, I think, around where we had him. And I think I'm looking at him as having a better season, a comeback season, if you will. And uh, I that offensive line with that not really needing to carry the bulk of that offense as a whole, I just see huge potential there, and I don't really think that I'm really sell where he's at, and I'm liking his position.
So are you buying or selling him?
I'm buying. I'm buying
All
right
right.
there.
Yeah, I mean he's going right there at the end of the second round, running back 15. I have him as my running back 14. So yeah, I am buying him. There was reported a couple weeks ago that the Falcons coaching staff did not know the health of Todd Gurley, which
Mhm.
was kind of that was a little alarming. But just recently he passed a physical, so he's good to go. There's even those hype videos coming around now where he's leg pressing hundreds of pounds with that knee.
Yeah.
So, it's that time of the year. Choo choo, hype train. Do you buy into the workouts? I mean, it's exciting to see all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mentioned before the Falcons, they're not going to be wary of overusing him since he's on a 1 year contract.
Mhm.
And I mean, he passes physical. He's on a great offense and he catches passes. So going at the end of the second round, beginning of the third, I am definitely going to buy him there at that position.
Yeah, and if we wanted to look at the people around him, I mean, if you're looking at running backs specifically, a lot of what's happening right now is you're drafting running backs early. So uh, I think he's potentially a deal, if you could say, even in the second round, as if he does improve, being the number 1 running back on that offense, which is rare if you look around the league for if they're ever going to have a potential possibility of making him into a workhorse. I mean, if he even gets half a workhorse load or 75%, I think he still has more potential than a lot of the split running back committees.
Yeah, and the second round. Like I would not take him early or middle second round, but end of the
Yeah,
second round, that's a good spot for him for me.
yeah, yeah. All right, moving on to our next running back. We have Melvin Gordon of the Broncos, Denver Broncos. I mean, I think you could tell by how I said that. I'm selling him. I haven't even told you his position, but I'm selling him. He's coming in the third round, number 5, running back 17. I just, I don't think he's that good of a running back. I think he had some decent years, um, but going to that Broncos offense with Philip Lindsay, Royce Freeman really took a step back, but the split backfield, the offense is looking decent, but I just don't see him. I still see him dropping below that and what he's going to do this season. Uh, when watching him last year come back, I mean, he eventually got into the swing of things, but he still wasn't doing like the best he could do. And um, I mean, when I say sell, I don't think I want him to drop like super low, but I think at least end of third for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit higher on Gordon. I mean, like
Mhm.
they paid him to come in there and be the starting running back, and he's going to lead the timeshare with Philip Lindsay. And yeah, so Lindsay last year he was 18th in points. So I think that Melvin Gordon could get around that area. But when I'm drafting a guy in the third round, I kind of want a guy with more upside to take over as the clear workhorse, like somebody going in that area is Chris Carson,
Right.
right? I would rather have Chris Carson because I'm almost certain that he's going to get more carries than Melvin Gordon. And I do think they're both going to be pretty run heavy offenses. Like with Melvin Gordon, they got Drew Lock there, a young quarterback. They paid Melvin Gordon. I think they're going to use him. But but there's 3 reasons I think his efficiency won't be great. He's going to have to get this off of volume, and it's because it's a bad offense. Drew Lock is not proven. But I mean, they got all these weapons for him. He could take the step forward. And Melvin Gordon has had efficiency issues outside of 2018. I mean, that was his only really great efficient year. And
Yeah.
then the offensive line isn't very encouraging either. So if he's gonna return on value here, he's gonna have to get a really large workload and catch a lot of passes. And I just want to go with more upside. I think he's a safe guy for volume, and I'd be more comfortable with him, like you said, at the end of the third, early fourth.
Yeah. And I think another running back you have going around there, feel a few rounds before is Leonard Fournette, which I'd feel a little more comfortable getting as well. Personally, I mean, I don't know how you feel about Leonard Fournette, but I
I
think,
think he's going to be drafted ahead of Melvin Gordon almost every time,
oh
though.
yeah, definitely. And but just being, he's actually round 3, number 2, so it's a little around there. So, but yeah, he's definitely going ahead. And all right, so another person that's right around where Melvin Gordon is David Johnson, the most controversial trade of the offseason. And a lot of people are wondering what's going to happen from this. What's going to build from this trade? How is he going to impact as much as DeAndre Hopkins? And I mean, he's primed. He's ready. If you don't think of the potential of injury, which is always a slight potential with him. I mean, it's looking like he could have a great year. He's going to get the workload. He's going to get the. I haven't said the ADP yet. He's being drafted around round 3, number 7, running back 18. So it's only 2 behind Gordon. I like him better than Gordon. I think even with his potential of injury, the potential of getting that workhorse load the whole year with only Duke Johnson as another pass catching running back, he's just gonna get the bulk, the workload. He has the potential for being just a more volumed running back. I think I see more efficiency from the Texans with how they'll spread out the wide receivers pairing with those running backs. I mean, even if the wide receivers aren't too good. There's a lot of speed on that team, and that creates a lot of separation, at least for what the defenders have to do. And I think that creates huge potential for what the running backs will be able to do, at least in the initial 5-yard range for them to get that boost going.
Yeah, I mean, David Johnson, like you said, he's going 307 here. And running back 18, I have him at running back 16. So I'm just going to say I am buying him here. And, I mean, Carlos Hyde, he had over 1,000 rushing yards last year. And Carlos Hyde, he's not good. So I think David Johnson is better. So I think he could.
Wait. Did I repeat that? He's not good. That's exactly he said that. Okay, go.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
I think David Johnson's better, even at this stage of his career, and I think he could also break 1,000 yards with this team, as well as catch more passes than what Carlos Hyde did. I mean, Duke Johnson had 44 receptions last year, and I think David Johnson will take over most of those, and maybe even more since there's so many targets gone with DeAndre Hopkins. I think a few more will go to the running back. So if he could reach 50 receptions and 1,000 rushing yards, I mean, he should be a lock for a top 15 running back, really. And look, we already think Bill O'Brien is an idiot. So he's going to want to prove us wrong by using this guy and having him, finish at the top league in rushing yards and receptions and whatnot. So, yeah, that's really what I think is he's going to want to prove us wrong by using this guy and showing us, hey, this guy's going to help us win games. This is why I brought him in here. So it all depends really on how good David Johnson is going to be this year. He hasn't been as bad as what some people want to think he was, but he's not as good as he was earlier in his career. But he's still got some juice, and he's still one of the best pass-catching running backs in the league.
Yeah, and I've said this multiple times before. I'm just rooting for David Johnson. The potential he had coming out of college, the potential you saw in those first 2 seasons. I just feel like if he has a comeback season, he really deserves it right here. I know that's separate from buying Sal, but man, I just really want him to succeed. All right. Well, that's our running backs. And now we're moving into the wide receivers. We got 2 set here for you. We're going to start with a huge trade of the offseason with Stefon Diggs. I'm sure he'd like if I said it like that. So he's going around with his ADP around round 5, number 10. He's the wide receiver 23. And I'm thinking about this. I gotta go down a little bit. I think I'm gonna buy here. And why? I mean, some people would argue that Josh Allen is still not going to create that volume that a wide receiver 1 needs. But then you're thinking, even if you draft like 3 running backs at the beginning and you take your first 3 rounds out, you probably still got in your wide receiver 1. And then this could have potential to be another wide receiver 1 type receiver with being your WR2. And if I'm looking, I want to talk about John Brown last year and what he was able to do as kind of that wide receiver 1. He finished more with, I'm pretty sure above, if I'm right, I had him on my team, above probably like 14 points per game, more than under that. With what he was able to do with connection, I just think, who am I thinking of? John Brown, Josh Allen. Stefon Diggs is in where Josh Allen wants to throw. Josh Allen has a huge arm, huge potential there. I think his accuracy is increasing every day exponentially. And I just buy into what Stefon Diggs could be able to do for Josh Allen with the chemistry and how he's growing. And I know a lot of people, again, would say, well, what about his attitude and how they'll connect? And Josh Allen's a cool guy. I mean, you see those videos, you see how he connects with his fans. I think he's going to be pretty calm with dealing with Stefon, and I just see big things for them. And I actually no, I'm not going to say that. I'd say maybe I could go a little bit higher with him, but I feel like there might be some wide receivers above, but I think he's in a good spot right there.
Yeah, I think Stefon Diggs is like one of the best route runners in the league. And there's a lot of times where he was open deep, and Kirk Cousins, since he's conservative, he doesn't hit him deep. And Josh Allen, he likes to sling it, so he's gonna throw it to him, even if it's not accurate or not. But last year he had 94 targets. Cole Beasley and John Brown had more than Stefon Diggs last year. So that just shows that the volume definitely can be there because the Vikings were so run heavy. Stephon Diggs didn't even have 100 targets. I mean, that's crazy. Cole Beasley and John Brown did. So
Mhm.
Stephon Diggs could easily walk in and take 100 targets. I mean, it's going to hurt Cole Beasley the most. John Brown's going to lose some targets, but Stephon Diggs, they brought him in there for a reason. They gave up lots of picks. They wanted that number one wide receiver, and he finished as wide receiver 24 last season, but that was with not quite as much volume. But the thing is, with Josh Allen, yeah, I like the improvement he made from year one to year two. But I still think that if he wasn't such a great runner, he might not be in the league because I think his accuracy, what he's shown so far, it hasn't been the best. It's similar to Cam Newton, and Cam Newton's legs kept him in. So I think I might sell him here just based on the quarterback play. But Josh Allen, he has the potential to take the step forward, but 2 seasons in a row, he's finished at the bottom of the league in completion percentage, and his deep accuracy has has been one of the worst. Yeah, even though he likes to sling it, it hasn't been good. But I think there's some other guys around that position, like DJ Chark, that I would rather have over Stephon Diggs. And even like the guy we're going to talk about next, I might even like him better.
That's an interesting point, but I really think I mean I'm going by just purely what I've watched of Josh Allen being in the AFC East. I think he looks like statistically he might be a little more inaccurate, but with the throws he makes and drop passes, I think were a huge thing for the Bills last season. I think John Brown is a decent wide receiver, but gosh dang, he dropped a lot of passes. Uh, I think maybe his pass rating could have been slightly up, but I think he really could support this year if he improved, at least in the margin they improved from year one to year two. If he does that again, I think that I think he has that potential. But
Yeah, I mean that's a big if.
yeah,
But I mean, like I said, all the things I said about him before were positive. But the thing is, since like I said, I think he can surpass 100 targets this year. But Kirk Cousins is one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league. So even if he had, 10, 15, 20 more targets, um that that still might not be as valuable. Like so he had 94 targets. So he had 115 with Josh Allen. I see them as being pretty equal because Kirk Cousins' targets are more valuable, and he only finished as wide receiver 24 last season. So I just don't know if his upside is quite where I want it to be.
I can I can hear that out, but I think we'll have to see, man. We'll have to
Yeah,
see.
it's not a hard sell. It's pretty
Yeah,
close for me,
yeah.
but I'm taking the sell.
All right. All right, moving on to Brandon Cooks of the Houston Texans. We have him going around round seven, number one. He's a wide receiver 31, and I think I need time to collect some of my thoughts. So I'm just gonna throw them to you first, and then you're coming back. So you go.
Well, yeah, I've talked. We just released, one of our last episodes talking late round receivers, and if you haven't seen that, you don't know how much I love Brandon Cooks.
Mm-hmm.
But he finished as a top 15 wide receiver 4 seasons in a row before 2019, and it seems like people are just forgetting that. It's like he was top 15 4 seasons in a row, and we're just forgetting about him. I mean, he's going late in drafts. In all four of those seasons, he had over 1,000 receiving yards with three different teams. I mean, we've only seen a few guys be able to translate the production to new teams so easily. And it's guys like Brandon Marshall, Manuel Sanders, and Brandon Cooks. But most guys, when they change teams, their production drops off,
Mm-hmm.
especially for receivers learning the playbook in year one, like we saw with Odell Beckham year one, Jarvis Landry in year one. They didn't quite get Jarvis Landry wasn't as quite as good until year two. I see the same improvement in year two for Beckham, but Brandon Cooks, something about him, he can just translate to a new team, and he's still just as productive. But yeah, he's still only 26 years old, and he is a great quarterback in Deshaun Watson, and can be the number one target for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. Did I hear that right? Did you say buy or sell? You said you probably
Oh,
said
that's a buy. Yes.
buy. All right. I'm gonna agree with that. And if you're looking at the people around him, you have Jarvis Landry. I mean, most of those strong wide receiver ones, wide receiver twos are kind of out, and I'm with what he said and where he's being placed at, I think he could even go higher. I mean, he is the wide receiver one. He needs to get that volume. He has Deshaun Watson. Uh, I mean, if you were going statistically where I think he would go, I think he could definitely go around where Stephon Diggs was going around 5 or even higher. And it's just, yeah, I mean, like you said, I think that statistic is overlooked with the different teams and how he was able to accomplish things. I mean, he went from the Saints to the Patriots to
The Rams.
the Rams, and you're going from mind and more of a balanced offense to Belichick, who's more of a defensive person with a complicated, super complicated offensive scheme. And then you're going to the Rams with Sean McVay going to that complications. He went to some complicated offenses. Like, they weren't easy to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he still could produce well. I think Bill O'Brien's offense is not like the most complicated things. I think even though he came from the Patriots, you could say it's a little dumbed down from what he's used to getting. And I mean, he also always contributes with that speed, with what he's able to do with his brains, with his smartness towards things. And yeah, it's a hard buy. I mean, if there's any buy that you have no doubt about in this whole thing, it's Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, because I mean, like you said, he's got that speed, so he's one of those guys that's going to give you those big, long touchdown games where he wins you a week, because he has such a great, strong game. And also, if he's going to get the volume, that makes him safe too. So, yeah, he's somebody. It's crazy that he's being drafted outside of the top 30 receivers when. I mean, I can see how Jarvis Landry, he might be a little bit safer, I guess, in people's eyes, but Brandon Cook's upside is so much higher than Jarvis Landry's this year.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm looking down, I mean, you have one of your favorite wide receivers below him, and Michael Gallup. It's a little crazy how you get into that less guaranteed type wide receiver 2 territory when he's going to be a guaranteed wide receiver 1.
Right, yeah, exactly. I agree with that. Some people might not, but I definitely agree.
All right, moving on from wide receivers. We have one QB. You can probably guess the QB. Actually, if you have a guess, put in the comments below. I'll give you like 5 seconds. I just froze right there. Okay, and now we're going into Tom Brady of the new.
Wow.
No, I did it on purpose. Of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I wanted to show my sadness a little bit. Wait, actually, can I have a side note? I was delivering pizza yesterday, and one of my last deliveries of the night, I ran into a guy while delivering pizza. I was wearing a Patriots hat, and he's like, "Hey, man!" And he like takes off his hat. He's like, "Here," and he hands. He didn't hand me, but he was showing really close. Tampa Bay Buccaneers hat. He's like, Tom Brady, right? He's like, I'm like, yeah, Tom Brady. He's like, so how do you feel? I was like, I support him. I've always supported him. I mean, he's the GOAT. He made the Patriots who they are today, and even if he's gone, he's still gonna have a huge impact in the locker room on the team. I think with some of those veterans that played with him. But anyways, we talked about it. He's like, yeah, I haven't been a fan of the Patriots, which is understandable because they won a lot. They won a lot. But he's like, I've been a huge fan of Tom Brady, of course. I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'm so stoked, man. I was like, please stop rubbing this in. But anyways, all right. Moving on to he's going in the 7th round, around number 11, moved up a little bit from a few days ago, and for a QB, with where he's at, I mean, I think we both agree we're a little more later in QB type people, but with where he's going and with the QBs that are probably taken ahead of him, I'd probably say that you'd still have, I don't know, Drew Brees. I'm not really looking at a list right now. You'd probably have not Ben, still a little more mobile type running backs going around the 7th round.
Running backs?
See, I said mobile and quarterbacks going around the 7th round. So, as much as I love Tom Brady, I think you could get him later for where he's going, so I'm going to sell. He's a QB9 still, but if you're playing it smart and uh, I, he's going to do great. He's a great offensive scheme around him, great weapons. He's like the best offensive unit that he's had since like 2007, 2012 even. I mean, 2007 was better, but I mean, it's big things. He's going to do great. It's just I think you get him later. I mean, that's the only reason I'm going to sell because I think with the people you could get around him with building your depth and running back or wide receiver, you want to do that first.
Yeah, I'm gonna sell Brady as well. Like you mentioned, we're just big believers in the late round quarterback. I mean, it just proves year in and year out to be the better strategy. I remember seeing a stat. I see it every single year where it shows like the top 10 quarterbacks drafted and how many of them returned on investment, and it's almost always 20% or less. They almost always never finish, where they are or higher. It's almost always lower. And you got guys like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. These late round quarterbacks just continue to break out, and I'm not going to take Brady here. And there's also, I don't believe this will happen this year, but looking at his age, right? I remember back with Peyton Manning, he was still great when he was older, but once he started to regress, he fell off a cliff. I mean, his stats were great, and then the next year, his last year, they were god awful. And you just got to take that into consideration with Brady because there's that risk. We have not seen somebody do it at 43 years old, but he is known for eating a healthy, mostly plant-based diet too. Maybe that's part of the secret. I don't know for sure, but 43 years old. Like I said, we haven't seen somebody do that, so you have to take that into consideration. But he's got some of the best weapons right now in the entire league. Is Chris Godwin, O.J. Howard, Robert Gronkowski, Mike Evans. I mean, these are four great receiving options. And, I've got a little bit of a theory here that I think that him and Gronk, since they have that chemistry and since minicamp and OTA has been canceled, they don't have as much practice time. I think that him and Gronk will have a really strong connection at the beginning of the year before he starts to develop chemistry with the other receivers. But still, he's being taken too high for me. It's right at the end of the 7th round. I usually don't even take a quarterback until the 9th round at the earliest, usually. It depends who's there, really. If like Josh Allen or Matt Ryan or Breeze are there at 9th or 10th, like I'll usually jump on them. But usually times I'll just wait and grab somebody like a Stafford and maybe pair him with like a Daniel Jones. I don't want Tom Brady this early. I like him. I think he's going to have a fairly strong season. But like I said, there's also always that risk with the age there.
Yeah, and I'm looking up the time when I'm thinking now when Peyton Manning went to the Broncos. That was, if I'm right, that was 2013. And that was when one of the best offenses. Man, I don't want to be wrong here. 2013, 2014. I'm looking up. I think Tom Brady could recreate that first year that Peyton Manning kind of had.
Oh, then you'd have him as the number 1 quarterback if that was the case, because he had the best offense like in history almost.
Yeah, well, I think they exceeded expectations that year, but I mean, if you could, I think he has the possibility to recreate like a top 5 quarterback season as a ceiling. I really do.
It's the second year I'm looking at. When he threw 55 touchdowns.
All right. Well, maybe he needs to learn offense first. But well, anyways, I mean, I just see huge potential there. I think even the year before that, Peyton Manning still did great with the Broncos. And if I'm looking at this, 2013, that's when he went? Or 2012?
2012.
2012. Oh yeah, so 2012, he's had around 19.4 fantasy points per game. Scored at the end of the year, 310. I mean, I'm not really gonna look at the end number, but the points per game, 19.4. That's not a bad finish for a quarterback if you get that averagely per game with the highs there and having a little bit of, I mean, of course, a few lows, but again, I mean, I said I would sell because I think you could still get him later, but I still think he has huge potential with where you could get him.
Yeah, if you look at Peyton Manning's numbers, like when I said, when he fell off, he fell off. So in his first year at the Broncos, he threw for 37 touchdowns. second year 55, and then the next year 39, and then then he was on a pace for 16.
Yeah.
He fell off, and then he was also because he missed some games, and then he was on a pace for over 20 interceptions, which he hadn't done since really early in his career. So he totally fell off. I mean, he's crazy that he won a Super Bowl that year. I mean, the defense just carried him that year.
Yeah.
He looked like a corpse out there.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't think Peyton Manning was quite as old as what Brady is now. So that could happen this year, next year. You can't really guess it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I want to like. I know that I might be a little biased here, but I think with Tom Brady's lifestyle and such, I don't really see a fall off coming. I mean, I think what you've seen recently is a slow decline. I really think that's what's gonna happen. I don't really see a huge fall off from him, but old age potential. You can never like guess these things.
I don't know. Brett Favre kind of fell off too. So I
Yeah.
think that's very
I mean,
possible.
with the track record, but I really believe Tom Brady's a different breed. Okay. Who
I don't know.
knows?
He could fall off. I mean, but he's the GOAT.
Yeah. A little biased. Don't worry. Okay, moving on. A little bit out of order here, but we just wanted to pair these two together. We have Rom Gronkowski, Gronk, going around the 6th round at number 8, tight end 6. I mean, you said it before. I think I said this in an earlier video. I was gonna say while you're saying, I was gonna go back. I was gonna say while you're saying, I was gonna say that his chemistry, as I mentioned before in earlier videos, that's gonna be undeniable, and that's gonna help with this crazy off season. I mean, we've talked about if they've been there with the team already, if they've already known the offense a little bit, they're set to be a little bit more primed to greatness at the beginning of the season. And even if he doesn't know the offense, nobody really has worked with Tom Brady before except for Gronk. So even if they're both learning a new offense, they're both learning together as people with prior chemistry. And whether I'm buying or selling now, getting to the main point, tight end 6th round. Personally, I'm selling. I don't take tight ends that high. That's kind of the QB thing. I think if let's say you got 3 running backs, you got 2 wide receivers, you're looking for that huge tight end 1. I think I'd also sell there. I mean, I don't know if he'll recreate some of that magic, but I think he's gonna have a good year. I think you have safer options at your tight end 1 that people will probably be going for with Kelsey and Kittle. I mean, I don't think they're quite around where he's at, but
Oh, definitely not.
yeah, no, yeah, I don't know why I said I don't think they're up more as like wide receivers, but there's people that like to take tight ends early. One, I would not recommend taking a tight end earlier than like the 6th round or 7th round, even if you're going for a tight end. But it's still a sell for me.
I disagree a little bit there because I would happily take Travis Kelce or George Kittle because then you don't have to worry about the stream game and you don't have to worry about carrying 2 tight ends because a lot of times, especially if you're in a fab league where you have to pay for free agents, then you don't have to worry about trying to see stream tight ends, buy that tight end for the week, random for, the week or 2. I mean, you just got that position locked down, and I think that's quite a big advantage. But it's really hard for me to get a tight end that early. But if I was at the end of the 2nd round, around the turn, I might be tempted to take somebody like Kelce. But these middle round tight ends, like the 5th, 6th round, they generally, if you look historically, they generally just don't do the best.
Yeah.
I mean, like last year was like O.J. Howard and Evan Ingram. They didn't have the best seasons. I mean, especially O.J. Howard. But of course, Evan Ingram is him with injury. But yeah, Gronk, it's a sell for me because there's a lot of red flags here. And I mean, he took the year off. He's been injury prone. He's a little bit older. Hasn't been playing football and coming into a new offense. Like I said, there's a chance I think that he could get off to a hot start where he gets a few touchdowns in the first few games, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, we got to trade for Gronk." But I don't think he's going to sustain fantastic value. And like I said, there's just so many red flags with him. He's just in the 6th round. No, thank you.
Yeah, I thought when you said you disagree, I'm like, you're really buying him there, but then you talked about the tight ends. I guess my main thing is I personally would rather get value out of like definite value out of two running backs, two wide receivers, um, and then take a shot with tight end. But I mean,
Yeah.
if you view your tight end as your wide receiver too, um, and then take a shot with your more gamble with your wide receiver too, then you're kind of maybe doing the same thing. So
Yeah, I just think George Kittle and Travis Kelce, they just give such a huge positional advantage week in and week out. And, with how deep this wide receiver class is, I mean, I could take my second wide receiver in the fifth, sixth round, we mentioned before, and be happy with it. But, yeah, I would have to – I'm really wanting to lock up two running backs in the first two rounds this year. So it would be hard for me to get myself to do that. But maybe if George Kittle's in the third round, I mean, I'd be tempted by that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you mentioned a good point. If you're thinking of, we were talking about draft strategy in like our last video. Running backs early round are the way to go. I mean, we've already said that. I think with their depth and what impacts they make when you have good ones, you gotta think of that way. Let's if you want to check that out, I'll link the description down below. Anyways, moving on. If you're ready to move on, I'm ready to move on. All right. Moving on to Hayden Hurst. Went to the Atlanta Falcons. A lot about Atlanta Falcons talk with these buys and sells. But I'm thinking about that. That's kind of interesting. But anyways, he's going number 7 in round 7 as the tight end 8. And again, personal, that's around the mid rounds. I'm not taking a tight end that high. If I have already some decent running backs and wide receivers, then I actually think I'm a little higher on Hurst, to be honest, than Gronk, who's because of the potential with what Austin Hooper was able to do there, and the more I think guy that's been playing in the league. But I need to think of my words. I just like where he's going. I like the scheme. I like how much they used Hooper last year. I like Matt Ryan's. He kind of has some moments where he wants to rely on the tight end a little bit, and I think that he has a huge year ahead of him. But
Yeah.
I sell because I don't think a tight end should be picked there, but I think he has huge potential.
Yeah, there's way too much value at wide receiver at that spot, especially in the 7th round. So yeah, I'm going to sell Hurst here too, but I do like him as a tight end option this year. I think he could have a really strong season, but I was shocked to see that his ADP was as high. I really thought he was going to be, in like the 9th round or something. But the fact that he's in the 7th round, yeah, I'm not taking him there, and I'd rather take a shot on somebody else later.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what I meant? I thought you said we're talking about a lot of Atlanta Falcons. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was like, we talked about 2 Texans, David Johnson, Brandon Cooks, 2 Buccaneers, Tom Brady, and Gronk, and then 2 Falcons too. I didn't even realize we had 2 players on the same team so frequently here.
I mean, I guess if you kind of look at it, if you go new player, new player, new player, new player, new player. Well, duh, they're all new players. I just realized we were doing that. Except, yeah.
Wow.
Wow. We talked about this before. We're like, we're going to do new players because we don't know if they're going to buy and people are probably going to know if they want to buy and sell. And now I'm just looking at it, thinking I'm like, I just came up with like a huge connection here. We already talked about it. Anyways, yeah, stop looking at me like that. Anyways, there's our buys and sells around numbers 1 through 8. I'll have the list of them down below. If you like what you heard and want to check out more of our videos, you can subscribe so you know when videos are coming out, as well as with the notification bell. That's gonna help you know as well. And if you don't see that little dot by our button, if you do subscribe to us, which thank you to our 13 subscribers, even though I know 3 of them are me. Anyways, if you want to know more about us, you can look at us on Instagram and Twitter at FFFanatics11. If you want to just listen to our audio, you can go on podbean at FFFanatics. And as always, hey, just be looking for new videos. And